heh, heh, heh. On December 15th, the betrayal happened. On the same night as I uploaded an episode of the Gamma Analysis with Keith, the Avengers brought him on their show. They stole my Keith. And a week later, I told them there would be consequences. Ha, 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 ha. It's time for some of those consequences. Keith may have thought that I'd be forcing him to watch Highlighter, but he was so very wrong. I have forced Keith to watch Howard the Duck and review it with me. Ha, ha, ha. Hey everyone, welcome to Smash Trivia. I'm your host, Smash Trivia John. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram by searching Smash Trivia to follow everything happening with me. I'll be the one with the big old green head in the profile picture. I'm so excited to get into this. This is the Gamma Analysis. Basically, in this series, I'm going to review everything Hulk, all the movies and TV shows, and maybe at some point I could get into comics, but that's a while off. And today, as you already heard, I am not actually reviewing Hulk. I hope you enjoy. Smash Trivia presents the Gamma Analysis. I want to ask everyone listening if they could please do something for me. Please share the hell out of this podcast with all your friends, because I really want to get the Gamma Analysis to be big enough that by the time She-Hulk comes out, maybe I could become press and either get the first episode early or be invited to the premiere, or even just get one of the press goodie bags. Normally, my podcast is mostly positive vibes, but that's being thrown out the window today, as I'm being a villain and I'm forcing my prisoner guest to watch something that most consider a bad film. My prisoner guest today is Keith.
Hello.
Hi, Keith. So, I have a trivia question for you, as I always do. Let's see if you can think of the answer to this one.
Okay.
So, what are the names of the 3 duck films that we see posters for in the movie?
Oh shit! What's crazy is I made note of in my notes the duck puns that they did with the actors' names. I totally am blanking on the actual films. Dang it! No, I have no idea.
Okay, well, I will tell the answer to that later in the show.
Can't wait.
And I don't recap what I watched scene by scene, so I highly recommend watching the film before listening. And this episode, I want to shout out the There Was an Idea in MCU podcast. Please check them out. You won't regret it. All right, so here we go with this review. So first off, I want to know, what did you think of this film?
Well, sir, if you were trying to torture me, who grew up nonstop watching weird shit that he shouldn't have, I think you found the wrong torture subject or the wrong torture implement, my friend, because this is you're basically talking to somebody who loves to get their fingernails pulled out with pliers. No, this is a type of movie that would sit on the VHS section of the video store I worked at, and I would check out movies like this all the time. This I had not seen this one, but I've seen stuff like Earth Girls Are Easy. Have you ever heard of a movie called Earth Girls Are Easy?
No, I have not.
Strangest cast in the world. It has Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey, and Damon Wayans. And the 3 guys play aliens that come down to Earth, and they are covered in singular color blue or red or yellow fur. And then they somehow get a makeover at a local salon and look like humans and pass for humans the rest of the film. And it's a musical. So I grew up liking that movie, if you can imagine. This is probably like a 23-year-old Jim Carrey movie, which is very strange to think of. But yeah, no, I enjoyed thoroughly Howard the Duck. I think it gave a lot of context to the couple of cameo scenes we see in the MCU of Howard the Duck. It clearly is a movie that James Gunn enjoys, which I have, I'm glad, because he does fit the Guardians narrative and Guardians theme very well.
Yeah.
And it felt like an early precursor, honestly, to the type of shit we see in Guardians. If it wasn't for movies like this being a chance being taken on weird movies like this, I don't think we'd get Guardians.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also really like this film, as some people may know, as I already did actually a review for this film on my YouTube channel, but yeah, I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed this film with how because of it has quite the reputation surrounding it. Yeah, so I was so surprised when I saw it. And I was sad that I couldn't talk about it with someone else when I made the review on YouTube. So I'm so happy to be able to actually talk to someone else about what I saw here this time.
I can understand that would be maddening. That would be crazy to be like to feel like the only person in like the last 20 years who would watch this movie.
uh, so I'm gonna get started off with my first note from the film. So right off the bat, we see two moons, and I really like this because it was pretty obvious that George Lucas was putting a Tatooine reference into this. Which also, if you don't know, George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, is also the creator of this.
I just remembered one of the movies that gets referenced later that is a pun, a duck pun movie that you're asking me in the trivia question. It's the only one I'm going to get because I don't remember the other two. Breeders of the Lost Stork is one of the three movies because of Lucasfilm or Lucas's involvement in this. I remember that one, and I don't remember why I didn't write the other two down, but that was great.
And I honestly really thought it was pretty cool how they took the time to actually make these duck movie posters. I thought that was really cool. And like I actually looked online while I was watching this the first time months ago for my review on YouTube, and no one knows where those posters are. They there has never been any auctions that sold them, and no there is no digital copy that's been online. So so anyone who's wanted something like that, they literally had to have someone custom recreate it, for
Wow.
them. Yeah, which
I would imagine
that was
Seth
so
Green or
interesting.
James Gunn. I could see Seth Green or James Gunn having a copy of that on their wall.
Mhm.
That is interesting. That's really weird that you can't find it anywhere.
Yeah. And like honestly, those movie posters, like if someone were selling them and I had the money to do it, I would love to be able to like particularly the Raiders of the Lost Stork. Like that would be so cool to be able to own just a piece from this ridiculous film. Uh
Absolutely. I when this movie and like you say the attention to detail not only in the posters but in everything. Like this is a first what 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes of the movie, and the amount of detail that they went with. Not only like I'm sure they could have done full size duck costumes for a lot of this, so they wouldn't have to miniaturize everything. But they went to details like the photography in his apartment, the like the duck puns in every corner of the room, like even just
mhm.
the ex duck friend of his, the ex fling of his calling and saying, you know, this I can't remember the message, but like the postcard saying our bills pressed up against each other. That was hilarious. The WC Fields and Mae West names changed to WC Fowles and Mae Nest. Like that's the part that took my attention in that movie poster. But
Mhm.
like seconds into this that not only are you in for a just a plethora of duck puns, but
Yep.
also that this character is supposed to be kind of like a down on his luck, almost like
Mhm.
it's almost like a PI story. You ever watch like an old film noir PI movie? There's a great like kind of not even a classic, but like a parody of them with the Big Lebowski, where this character who's down on his luck, he's kind of considered a loser character, is thrusted into this adventure that he didn't ask for, and
Mhm.
then he has to rise to the challenge of becoming a hero and figure out the mystery and figure out the whole thing. It's a very much it's like a cosmic PI story, which
Yeah.
the saxophone music at the beginning very much felt
Yeah.
like instantly that kind of vibe.
Mhm. Yeah, you talked about how much attention to details put into even just those first 5 minutes in the film. it honestly saddens me how little people have seen this film because of the reputation it has, because they put so much effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
They really went all out on this.
It's true. The thing that made me cackle the first time in the movie, the first laugh it got out of me, was him going. It's just a bunch of shots around the apartment of his achievements through his life, photos with his parents, photos of him getting karate trophies, and then and then one shot of him in full hippie garb, growing pot plants and giving the peace sign. And I was like, that's the funniest damn thing I've ever seen. It's just the fact they threw that in there.
I don't think I noticed that, but that is really funny. Oh man. And I really loved the voice they gave to Howard. I think it was pretty perfect for him.
Yeah, a lot less seedy than I expected. The version that Seth Green does is a lot like, I hope it's like an older Duck, or maybe it's more based on the comic version of him, but they kind of like charmed him up a bit, I feel, for this movie in the 80s.
Yeah. I think the first joke in the film that I really laughed at was when he was swapping through TV stations, and there's this joke making fun of medical dramas where the doctor is just beating on the patient's chest while the nurse is professing love to him, and then the doctor just says, he's dead.
That was one of the funny things too, is there was like 5 or 6 shows that it flips through.
Mm-hmm.
In none of those were there any duck puns. Those were just shows that we'd see in our world, but with ducks.
Yeah.
But they didn't take that up, and I liked that. I was like, that's okay. Well, they're just trying to make it feel like, okay, this is the only thing that's different in this universe, is the fact that they're all ducks. That's it.
Yeah.
That was pretty fantastic.
Oh man.
I'm trying to find that hippie picture for you. I'm gonna take a screenshot of it.
One thing that I was told before I watched Howard the Duck the first time, because like I had been honestly dreading watching it alone for many months, and like I had tried to get someone to watch it with me, trying to do like a watch party sort of thing, and like he was like he kept warning me. And this is Brandon from the Avengers. Yeah. He kept warning me, there's duck boobs in it. I'm like, and when
duck
I was
breast,
watching
duck
it,
breast.
Yeah. And when I was watching, I'm like, seriously? They're literally on screen for like 2 seconds. That is not enough to not watch a film.
I watched after watching the full movie, I watched like a good 5 minutes of one YouTuber giving his criticisms, and he goes on about how he loved this movie growing up. And I loved this movie because, you know what, it wasn't just because I was a 13-year-old seeing duck breasts for the first time. Like, he was just like mesmerized by it. He was like, and you know what, I was fine with that. Any breasts was great in a movie. I was like, okay, man. It was a puppet. It was a created puppet. It was pretty funny.
Oh my god. Wow. Oh god.
Off the rails.
Mm-hmm. I love the transition through space as he goes to Earth. I thought that was really well done, and the narration during it, chef's kiss.
I wrote it down. So is this not the best description of what we now know as the multiverse? He says the cosmos, countless worlds upon worlds. In these galaxies, every possible reality exists. And what is reality on any one world is mere fantasy on all others. I was like, that's perfect. That's a great example of anything that can happen is happening in another universe. I love it.
Yes, immediately when I saw this film the first time back in November, like I immediately saw that. I was like, wait, are we sure it wasn't Howard the Duck who broke the Marvel multiverse?
It's just been
because I'm pretty sure he traveled the multiverse here.
Yep. It was him or Dr. Jennings.
Like that is gonna be a theory that I will have until Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That Howard
finally
the
put it to
Duck is
rest.
like Howard the Duck is the first MCU film.
It would be very out of. I feel like it would be very hard to place him in the multiverse of madness because of how dark that movie seems to be. But I would not be. I wouldn't hate it after seeing this movie
No,
tonight. I
no,
would
I
not
wouldn't.
hate seeing him pop up and be like, "Did you do this?" and be like,
Though
eh.
they would have to recreate the animatronics for it or do it using CG because have you ever seen what those look like now? They
What?
have not aged well. Look up the Howard the Duck suit.
Oh no! Oh no!
It should just when you go on Google Images, it should one of the first thing that pops up should probably be it. It's terrifying.
Oh no! Yeah, that's not great.
Oh
That's looking more
god.
like that's looking more like FNAF game.
Yep.
That's
I don't
that's
know.
Chica.
I don't know what happened to that head that over the years it just like I guess disintegrated or something.
Yeah, I don't want to know who owned that.
Oh god. Yeah, I remember reading like it sold on eBay for like $1,200 or something, and then like someone was selling, I think like the body or something, and then the guy who bought that the head was like, "Yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying the rest of them."
He's like, I am thoroughly disappointed. I would like to write a review. This is terrible. Please
Oh
never
yeah.
sell anything again. Yeah.
Oh,
Did you notice when he did fly away in space that the Earth behind him, Duck World, is egg shaped?
I did not notice that.
It's so funny. Just the still image of him flying away from a globe that's otherwise exactly Earth, but egg shaped was I laughed
Yeah.
pretty hard at that one.
It's so good. So the next thing I wrote was I like how right after the assholes give Howard to this guy saying that they found him a date, Howard just plays along as he's being thrown out of the bar, saying, "Wait, that's my date." Like what?
I thought it was the dude that they were like pushing him on that said that. I thought it was so
I thought it was
strange.
Howard, but the thing is,
Either
either
way,
way, whether it's
strange.
Howard or him, why are you playing along?
Yeah, you were. It felt like the guy was being bullied into.
Yeah,
Oh, this is your date. Anyways,
they're
yeah.
kind of both being bullied.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. That was
oh man,
and in that scene, seeing Leah Thompson. Oh my god, I cannot tell you this is the first movie she was in after Back to the Future. As a kid, I had a huge crush on Leah Thompson because I
I
watched
imagine
her.
everyone did.
Yeah, I mean, not only was it Back to the Future, she was awesome in that, but also there was a sitcom in the '90s, Caroline in the City, that she was hilarious on. And there was another person in this movie like for like 5 seconds. One of the other band members in her, what are they called? Cherry Bomb. One of
I
the
think
band
so.
members was on a sitcom in the '90s too called Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and I was excited to see her name pop up. And then she was in Howard the Duck for 5 seconds. But
Mhm.
regardless, Leah Thompson is fantastic, and
Oh yeah,
I think this might have been before she learned how to act, but also it wasn't that bad. It was
yeah. It
pretty
really
damn.
wasn't.
She had a better part than most in this movie. Better part than Tim Robbins times
And
1,000.
I honestly really love Leah Thompson's singing in this. I think she did
Yeah,
a fantastic job singing.
you could
Uh
tell it was her. It was good.
yeah, so she actually apparently said in an interview, I think it was actually like a few years ago for like the 30th anniversary, where she was like, yeah, so me singing in the film, that is actually me, and it's because um they could not decide before releasing the film whether they wanted to dub her or not, so she just decided to do the singing
Nice.
because they
Good.
couldn't decide.
Well, yeah, she proved her worth in that scenario where I don't even think I've seen her sing in anything else where if she sang
Yeah,
in Back to the Future, I wasn't aware of it, but
yeah, I
she's
don't think
good.
she's
She's damn good.
Back to the Future. I love the line from Howard as he just lands on someone's bike. Just, are you ready for an incredible story?
Oh yeah, yeah. He's trying to explain to this person who hopefully won't kill him and throw him off the bike, and he's just like, "Hey, you're gonna love this. like, please let me explain." Yeah, he's like pleading with them. I love that. There was so many there's so many great lines right off the bat with these, and some of these like side characters that don't have a lot of like these day players who like play the thugs that attack I want to call her Caroline, but I know it's Leah Thompson. She's one of them says, I have been doing too much toot. And he says that because cocaine was very popular in the 80s, and that's what they called it back then. But then he calls it quack foo. I like the quack foo line too.
Yep.
That was good shit.
And the name you're looking for is Beverly. That's the name
Beverly.
of
Yes.
Leah Thompson's character.
Beverly. Yeah. Bev.
I loved that Beverly wasn't just a damsel in distress, as she actually got a few punches in too on her attackers in the alley.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then we go and see her apartment. I don't know if I'm skipping ahead too far.
I think I have a few more things before that.
Go for it. Go for it.
One was the line of "No more Mr. Nice Duck."
Yes. You can tell that is something that big Howard the Duck fans have quoted all their lives. Like, that's the moment.
I don't think I noticed this the first time that I watched this, but one of the attackers, did you notice he has a whole bunch of baby faces on his jacket? I think that might be weirder than the talking duck.
I wonder what his nickname is. I feel like I feel like the nickname Babyface is more common than someone pinning a bunch to their jacket. So I feel like that's a weird way to represent your nickname. But it's probably true.
The next thing I have, I think this might be the last thing I have before we enter the apartment, is another line where it was, this is seriously starting to undermine my self-esteem. I really cannot get enough of these lines in the film. I just love them so much.
He absolutely speaks as the everyman, and I love that they set it up to that is more credit to the fact that he is supposed to be, other than his appearance, exactly like us. Like, he's just in a what's the word, fish out of water, duck out of pond, whatever. But he's, otherwise he's reacting the same way anyone would if they were in a place where everyone looked different. And I love that. He's just speaking like a normal human. So cool.
And my next thing is, once he got into the apartment, and it was like right after Beverly offered him to put some water in a bowl, and he asked for a brewski. I wrote the line that he had right after that, where he said, "I'll put you in a bowl. Give me a break."
I got that too. That was good. That was a good under the breath moment. Yeah, when we got to her apartment, Beverly's apartment. So I watched so many movies from the 80s that all took place in big apartments in the big cities, that I thought that all apartments were dilapidated lofts that looked like they used to be part of a factory, with neon lights and furniture stolen from diners. Like, to this day, I still think I might believe that about big cities. But the fact he walks up to the duck purse on her counter, and he's like, "What the hell is this?" She's like, it's just a purse. And I thought, if you walked up to a naked human being purse, would you not be a little alarmed?
Yeah.
Just perspective,
Oh my God.
Shoes on the other flipper.
I would probably be like, you might be more crazy than I am.
He's like, "What are you doing to my people?"
Oh God. The next thing I have, and this is the only other thing I had from while he was in the apartment, was damn, I would not have expected a film like this to deal with Howard having PTSD from coming through that wormhole.
True.
Oh my
That
god.
moment was heartwarming because you felt for him, because this little quaking, little shivering feathered being is worried about another, wormhole. Why wouldn't he?
Mhm.
And very quickly we're on his side, and so is she. She's so quickly his best friend. She's gonna give
Yeah.
up her day tomorrow to try and figure out how to get him home. Barely knows the
Mhm.
guy. Goes through
And,
his wallet, which was incredible, like invasion of privacy.
yeah.
Okay, can we talk about the weird part in the wallet?
Are you talking about the condom?
Thank you for not saying the punny credit cards. Yeah, no, it was credit card, and then suddenly condom. The condom's not wrapped in a wrapper. Are we under the assumption that, like, look, I watched a lot of movies from the 80s, but I don't know if they were as bold to go hard to say that this was just an unpackaged, unused condom. That's the strangest
Yes.
thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's useless. There's no use for that. You can't.
Mhm.
Anyways, maybe the
Uh,
80s were a different time. Anyways, I'll move past.
uh, um, you know, I'm really honest. Even though it is a human and a duck, I honestly, they made me buy into this relationship. It works. Like
Yeah,
they have enough chemistry
yeah.
in the film. Um, yeah,
It's true. It's
especially
it's
when
an it's an argument for love wins. It's an argument for that hashtag for sure.
like and it was so heartwarming to see like when he falls asleep and she puts a blanket or was it a jacket or something on him.
Mhm.
Like that was really nice.
Yeah, it's a tender moment. They
Mhm.
do have chemistry. You're right, and for what, when the suspension of disbelief is taken away, it is a voice actor acting with a little person inside a suit with an animatronic head, and yet this animatronic head and voice and
Mhm.
actor all convey together this
Yeah.
charismatic character so
And,
well. It's the reason that shit worked for so long. It was the reason
and
people went, why did you make CGI everything?
yeah.
Like, let's go back to animatronics that are
And
actually tangible.
um Leah Thompson did such an incredible job in these scenes because um she's working with this animatronic that's not speaking. It looks
Mhm.
like it's speaking, but I read in for the production of this, they had not got a casting for or
The
Howard's
voice.
voice pinned down till like a few weeks before it was released. Like
Damn.
they or something like that. It was like they did not have any casting while they were filming at all. So, she was literally a making this seem very real. With something that's not talking back to her at all. Yeah,
Yeah, that is a testament to her acting ability. Absolutely.
yeah.
Good for her.
Um, the next thing I have when and I get to meet Phil. Um, Immediately, so Phil walks into a meeting with his fellow scientists to tell him about Howard, but he stops himself after realizing how dumb it will sound. So he says nothing, which just makes them think he's crazy. Like he stopped them from thinking he's crazy from one thing by making him think he's crazy some other way.
Well, see, I took it differently. I thought that he stopped himself because he realized, he being the younger scientist of the whatever collective, he should take ownership and they should not steal it from
Uh
him, his idea,
Maybe.
because he could easily just show them in the other room and them decide for themselves if he's crazy or not. But he goes, he gets a little selfish, and it's like, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know whether or not we were supposed to like Phil right away, and I eventually, it wasn't until he starts to include his other, like, his superiors like Dr. Jennings, that I was like, oh, we're gonna have an arc with Phil where he eventually becomes, he has to give up the scientific discovery bullcrap and just own up to the fact that he can be a human being and care about Howard's safety and stuff. So it's like it's a weird arc. But I was gonna say, when we saw him, I was like, Tim Robbins is not known for his comedy very much. He's known for serious roles, Mystic River, Shawshank Redemption, War of the Worlds. Like, he's always in serious stuff, and he has been in some good comedies. Austin Powers being one of them. I think he has a cameo as the president. But yeah, that guy is talented, and I like seeing him in stuff as goofy as this, because he is a goofy guy.
Now, another thing I had from seeing at his lab, and I understand from a production point how they did this, but I'm wondering from a in universe, how did Phil sound exactly like Donald Duck? Like, I understand how they would have, how they in the editing process made him sound like that, but I'm wondering, like, how in universe did he just like immediately was able to just sound exactly like how Donald Duck?
Well, you've never met somebody who can do a Donald Duck impression, like a damn good Donald Duck?
The thing
I
is, this
can't.
is exactly like Donald Duck.
I know there are some people who can enunciate better than others. My dad could do a half decent Donald Duck, but he couldn't say a ton of words, and I can do even less. Like, I can basically just do enunciation, like onomatopoeias. Like, I can make him say hang on. Like, that's it, and that's terrible. And but my dad could actually get words out. I know there were people who could do better than that, and the guy who actually did Donald Duck wasn't too far off. I don't know how the hell they do it. They're pushing so much air into their cheeks when they do it. I never understood that.
Okay, so
people prided themselves on being able. That was one of the first big cartoon impressions that, especially like dudes in their 50s, were really good at.
Oh man! So the next thing I have is once they leave a Phil, or how it sees a screaming human, and he just responds, "Typical hairless ape. They look hungry. Give them a banana."
After Phil's description of how humans came to be, and Howard's immediate response is so disgusted by it. Like, I love that he just started looking at humans as just as gross and primitive as just apes. He's just like, man, yeah, that was good stuff. Did you notice that they're sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but they have this fight at the fountain right outside, and he says to her, "Don't shed any tears for me, lady," and she says, "You can wallow in your own self-pity." And I feel like those are more subtle duck puns. Shedding, your feathers, wallowing in water. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into this for the duck puns, but I'm trying to count as many as I can.
Maybe. No, you were not skipping ahead, as the next thing I had was how, again, with I really feel sorry for Howard's mental health. And we see some more PTSD from him, and like, as he's seeing all these duck hunting stuff on the TVs. Yeah, it was like, oh my god.
Well, that's even after the weirdest scene.
I didn't know what to write with that scene though.
I don't either. The hot tub brothel.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell that was.
Here's some private rooms where we have some hot tubs. It's a bathhouse. It's like the shittiest version of I guess a bathhouse, but it's God. he knocks his mean boss into a tub of sludge, and that's rewarding. But it was the most disjointed moment, I feel. Came out of nowhere. But I mean, whatever. I mean, got us to the next part.
And like, how he got the job there is he goes to this like job recruiting place, and they put him in they said it was just for people who were trying to not work, trying to not be able to work. But if you look on the wall in that office, it was pretty obvious that her office was for the children's jobs, because there was a bunch of headshots of children in there.
Oh wow.
So I'm wondering if she was sending children to this bathhouse.
To go clean the tubs or
Oh
something. Yeah,
God.
that was weird. I love that the guy called him a water expert before. You're my water expert, and then he throws him into the water, and he's like, "This is where we find out that he can't swim. He's a
Mhm.
waterfowl that can't swim." I
Yeah.
like that little detail about him. I to this day I would love to see a Howard the Duck either sequel or remake or whatever, especially
Uh-huh.
than just like throwing him in and peppering him into the MCU.
Yeah.
But like bring that back because that's a great little detail about him.
Yeah, it really is. The next thing I have was that this goes along with the PTSD, where I was like, I'm so surprised at how many real life issues this film deals with, and so openly deals with them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I want to know your take on it because
mhm.
I mean I can maybe see them, but I don't I definitely didn't pick them out as much.
Yeah. Well,
The
the next thing that I wrote down, I'm not sure how much I if I missed any scenes between here and the air and that and here, but the next thing I wrote down was how I wrote that sentence before right after the comment from the manager about bringing Beverly up to his room for career
mm,
manipulation.
mm.
That and like I
Those are some scummy dudes, those three
yeah, they
guys. I
really
know
were.
I recognize two of the actors. They always play scummy dudes, and I can't imagine what that's like to be a character actor that gets cast in
Yeah,
those roles
that
constantly. But
does sound awful.
yeah.
Like
Have you ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
no, I have not.
Oh man. It's
I need
one
to
of the
check.
dudes, the like most recognizable, like I think rat kind of face looking guy with the longer hair and the goatee. He's talking with them. He's usually got like an open dress shirt of some kind of awful pattern. He was in not only this like late 80s, early 90s version of the Super Mario Brothers, but he was also in Bueller's Day Off. He takes the car, the one of the friend Cameron's car, his dad's car, this perfect old sports car, and as they check it into a garage, they say, "Oh yeah, we'll take really good care of it," and then they drive it like beyond the speeds of known known acceptance. And it's a great scene, but he always plays those skeevy kind of like
Mhm.
garage attendant or like lackey or henchman kind of characters, and
Mhm.
he's perfect for
Yeah.
the role.
Like I really wanted to mention this is like this came out in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
In the 80s and 90s, even the 2000s, a lot of a lot of problems like this, they were not brought to light.
Mm-hmm.
And they were they were hidden really, and so that's why I was so surprised that this, and particularly even a film like Howard the Duck would
Mm-hmm.
mention things like that and bring them to light. I think that's amazing that they did.
Well, I mean, we're talking about something that culminated in a way with the Me Too movement, right?
Mhm.
So that heavily took place on Twitter first,
Yeah.
and that without Twitter, people weren't taking those stories seriously. So stories like that would always circulate, and you'd hear jokes made of them or references made of them, and people just thought they were few and far between. They didn't have them happen that often because who would ever spill the beans? Who would ever actually tell the truth? And people weren't standing up for each other to like say, oh, actually, that guy does do that because their careers were always threatened.
Mhm.
So now you've got a world where everybody can share their stuff. And yeah, it does cause a lot of misinformation too. But if you want a fast reaction to have people back each other's stories up and defend each other, the Me Too movement was perfect for that
Yeah.
exact thing. And you couldn't do that before the internet. You couldn't do that before social media. So
Mhm.
as many bullshit things that social media causes, there's a lot of good things as well. It's a
Yeah.
double-sided coin.
Yeah, and That's why my mom likes to mention a lot about how she thinks that there's so much worse things happening in the world now than there used to be. Of like, I'm like, no, there's always been these awful things happening, but people are bringing light to them. They are
100%.
bringing light to them online. And that's why you're hearing more about them. They have been happening forever, but we're finally speaking up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's the same thing with homophobia, racism, bigotry of any kind is happening. It has been happening forever. It's just when the hell would, okay, first of all, less people are dying over it. Okay, maybe not less people, but the more attraction and attention that these stories get, the more people believe them and the more masses behind these stories. But when have we ever communicated with that many people until the internet, the age
Yeah.
of the internet? Now suddenly, it's not just word of mouth. It's not just, oh, you had to get that newspaper that exists in this city, but you're nowhere near it. So
Yeah.
but then it's just started, people could take a newspaper and they could scan it and they could send it out to their friends, and then all of a sudden, you could just get a digital article or a screenshot and immediately start sending it, and then now it's just stories straight from the horse's mouth. Yeah, crazy.
It really is. Yeah.
The evolution of people, man.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that the duck people are quite as fortunate.
So the next thing I wrote was, yeah, Howard, beat their asses. The manager and his friends really fucking deserve it.
uh
And then I wrote how I love when Howard says space rabies just to get them to leave him alone. Oh my god.
I was delighted by that point too, when he kind of like chases, and you see him jump down from the bar and like chase the mob away a little bit, and it's like the height difference is so fun, and he's just scaring them all away with this little duck man.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, even though he's very short, but
He knows
there
quack
was
food.
not enough people who were scared by him in the film. Like, I feel like in reality, you would not be. You see this talking duck, you're not going to pick him up and take him to your friend and make a joke of him being on a date with him. And you're gonna freak out. You're like,
Very
that
true.
was that was one thing I did think was really funny, how it was very few and far between where people actually started freaking out when they saw him.
Yeah, I think that it should have happened more, but also what made me laugh the most is it took like an hour into the movie before someone said, "Get that guy out of that duck costume," and it was like, how has no one thought of that response before until just now? But that was good.
Next I have skips ahead a little bit. So I will just real quick mention like the scenes where it skips over. It's I went through how it was past where Bailey stops singing because she realizes the crowd is more interested. Well, she doesn't realize it's Howard, but she interested in something else, and then Howard going to give them their money, and how the scene where Phil's being really creep to the girls, but where I my next note was past all that. It was it was when Howard gets back to the apartment, and I wrote how I love seeing Howard playing music and dancing.
I love the dancing. I love the scene where they're kind of flirting with each other. What I didn't love was the music choice. There was a score sound track that comes in that makes everything seem a lot more suspenseful and uneasy for such a strange flirtatious scene. And maybe it was just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I got to rewatch it or something, but that it seemed very odd to me, the music choice at the moment when he's talking about
I
like,
hadn't noticed that, but you may be right. It was it may not have been a great music choice.
I
Honestly,
don't
I
remember the
thought,
dancing scene, so I think we're talking about two different
oh,
songs.
like Howard's like starts playing music on the piano or keyboard, and then he just starts dancing a little bit, moving back and forth.
I think you must be talking about different points then, because
Yeah.
this was like score music that comes in right when she's like preparing the bed, and he's like, "Oh, I really could have come to, or have come to appreciate the female human anatomy," whatever,
Oh yeah,
that
that's
very
a
weird moment.
yeah.
You know the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that
Oh,
Leah Thompson's daughter to this day doesn't understand what she's seeing
oh
when she
dear
watches
God.
television. Yeah. Yeah. She catches
Oh
that on
man.
TV. That's a weird
And
moment.
I I really honestly found it hilarious. While Beverly is in the bed and acting sensual to Howard and touching his chest.
She starts
Like,
fucking
oh
with
my
him.
god,
Yeah.
that was hilarious.
It took over. It took such a turn at that moment when she started fucking with him, and then she says to him, I was just kidding," and then he's just like, "Oh, okay," and it got it got so it got so endearing at that moment when she admitted that she was just fooling around. But it took such a roller coaster these days. That same scene today would
I,
not play as normal as it would have back then.
Mhm. Maybe I remember the scene differently, but I seem to remember Howard actually telling her, or no, no,
Mm,
I'm not,
he did.
I don't feel like doing this.
Yeah, he stops her. He's like, I'm not into this, and then he gets all nervous and quaky, and then she's like, Howard, I was just joking, and then she like turns the light off or whatever, and he's like, oh, hilarious.
Oh
It's back
god.
and forth. It's like, where is this going? And then suddenly she takes over, which is refreshing, and then he's in a place of discomfort, and then she just admits she was joking. It was wholesome.
And we see Phil and Jennings. And I think there was it one other guy there, with
Yeah, that guy
them who,
doesn't get seen much.
yeah, he doesn't come. I don't like he drives with them, I think, and then he doesn't appear again. Uh, like they uh, they
They
see
didn't
what
need him.
looks like them doing some things behind a sheet, which freaks
Yeah.
them out.
And then they're just suddenly like taller than the curtain. They're just like peering over it. All of a sudden, you're like, oh wait, these guys could completely just walk up. Why are they walking up? And they're like, the door was open. Oh, well, that makes
Yeah.
sure. Come on in, jerks.
I think they had a line of, this defies all laws of something.
Nature, maybe.
Yeah, I think nature. Yeah, it was hilarious. Oh man, I the next thing I wrote, I'm not exactly sure what Howard was saying this in response to with those the three men, but he said, on my planet we don't say die, we say kill.
Yeah, I have no idea what that would be in reference
Well,
to at that moment.
it was, he said it multiple times in the film, in that moment, and then once later in the film, if I remember right. Yeah.
We don't
Oh
say
yeah.
die, we say kill. Well, wait, that's a good line. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the
Oh.
old Game of Thrones line, like, what do we say to the god of death? Not today. And I always like that line.
Mhm.
Um, when Phil comes back with the scientists and he introduces them to Dr. Jennings, immediately, because I know Jeffrey Jones, the guy who plays Dr. Jennings, I know that actor in so many other things, that he always plays a villain. I was like, something weird's gonna happen with this dude, and I did not. But in my wildest dreams, I never would have expected what happens with him. Oh
uh,
man, that was probably one of my favorite things about this movie.
mhm.
Is the metamorphosis of Dr. Jennings.
Uh, um, they ask Howard if he has any questions, and Howard responds, "Yeah, where's my pants?" Oh
He
man.
doesn't want to be Donald Duck in it the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, next thing I had was where right after Phil was started trying to stop Howard from going with them because he wants to make money off of Howard and become famous. As I wrote, can Phil, or Four Eyes as Howard calls him in this scene, which I don't understand why he called him Four Eyes, but
Does he have glasses?
yeah, he has glasses on.
That's all that means.
Okay.
That's a silly, terrible insult.
Please stop trying to get famous and making money off of Howard. That's very rude.
Yeah, no, that solidified when I saw, like I say, like he brings in a guy who's known at least in the movies I've seen him in, for playing a villain. I was like, okay, this means that Phil's character is going to have to betray someone who's a mentor of his, or look past at least the idea of becoming a famous scientist to help Howard, because this guy's definitely going to be a bad news character. I didn't expect him to become a dark overlord, but I certainly didn't think he was going to be on the up and up by the end of the movie.
Yeah. It honestly, I think though I enjoyed him playing the Dark Overlord. I also really enjoyed just Dr. Jennings as well. I thought he did great in that role as well.
I was very glad he came back to the side of the good by the end, and he was trying to help out.
Yeah. We have one thing from while they were driving to the lab, where Beverly he tells Howard, "I bet you were born from a very hard-boiled egg." It, I don't know how
amazing.
I feel if I was Howard in that scene, being told, "I bet you were born from a very hard-boiled egg."
I feel like his reaction to the eggs, the fried eggs later in the movies, he has no idea what she's talking about as far as the hard-boiled eggs even being a delicacy of some kind. He's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And then he finds out later that they eat eggs, and he's like, what, are you crazy?
I imagine I would be thinking that scenario, like, you think I was born from something that was cooked to a point where I'm dead? Do you think I'm undead?
John, you may have crossed into the territory of looking into an egg pun or a Howard the Duck pun too heavily, but in the best possible way, and I love you for it.
Yeah. Oh man. Next thing I found very weird. Why didn't Dr. Jennings come with them in the same vehicle to the lab? And like they find he was already there, even though it would make sense he would be arriving near the same time, since I imagine he would have left Beverly's house at the same time.
The fate of Dr. Jennings was all weighing on whether or not they carpooled. And that's very true. If they had just all taken the same damn vehicle and saved some gas and saved the ozone a little, they would have, Dr. Jennings would have been fine.
Yeah.
It's plot. It's in the script.
It's very obviously plot, but when I honestly had not noticed that the first time I watched back in November, but this time I was watching, I was like, wait, he's not in the car. Where is he?
That guy's dying somewhere, or getting possessed or some shit. That's where that guy goes off and does.
I love how this scientist is freaking out about how his eyes are burning. His eyes are burning, even though it looks like, well, most of his face is burned. His eyes are untouched.
Yeah. He looks like he's just been under a bad sunbed lamp or something.
Man.
His metamorphosis into the Overlord, which still doesn't have a name, right? It doesn't get a name. It's a Dark Overlord.
Yeah, it doesn't get a name in this. It does have a name in the comics, which I will mention during the trivia section of the episode.
Okay. Yeah, he
Um,
doesn't. He his metamorphosis is very good acting on his
mhm.
part. I feel not only for scariness, but like his comedic relief in the moments where he's transforming made me very happy. And he's like some of the lines he's given, he delivers in such a way that is even in a moment of serious stress. Um, like I got one that I'm thinking of. He says he's talking with the waitress, and he says, "I'm gonna see if I can find it. Hang on, or you talk. I gotta find it."
Well, I was when I was first watching this back in November, I did not pick up on where the cop said, "Get that duck suit off of him." So
Oh, really?
I was wondering, why the hell are the cops stripping Howard? That's so weird.
Like that was the first cop to ever say anything like the idea that that could be a costume, and I was very surprised by that because
Yeah.
it's the like a suspension of. I'm surprised you either do or you don't mention the fact that it could be that
Mhm.
because it's the suspension of disbelief, right? That
Yeah.
cop, what the only thing I recognize him from, and this is useless information, useless, it's trivia though,
Hmm.
is he was on over 300 episodes of the original CSI, and
Ah.
his character, he was called Captain Jim Brass, and he was meant to be the middle management to oversee the crime scene investigator guys, but his last name's Brass, and that's a nickname that you give middle management in police hierarchy. So the fact that he was just called Jim Brass is like the laziest goddamn writing I've ever seen in my life. But anyways, that's
Uh,
entirely beside
um,
itself.
when Beverly and Howard they are able to hit one of the cops down to the ground, and then Beverly's able to get one of the guns. They made a reference to the original Hawaii Five O, where he was
Yeah,
like, "Book 'em, Ducko."
yeah. And then he says, "Give her the cuffs, Flatfoot." And he has flat feet. The duck
Mm-hmm.
puns don't end,
uh,
and it's insane to me.
yeah.
Good for them. Good for them.
Um, the next thing I have is after they find Dr. Jennings and they get out to a car with him. I wrote, maybe you don't want to have the guy in excruciating pain drive the car. That
Very
doesn't
true.
seem like a good idea.
It's a bad call. I love that. What became for more and more as it progressed, his agony progressed. They gave it less and less seriousness. They kept addressing him as if he's fine. Like, oh my
Mhm,
god, this guy just won't shut up about how much pain he's in. Like that,
mhm,
the two of them, Howard and Beverly, probably bonded more to me as characters in the way they reacted to Jennings' pain
mhm,
than the entire rest of the movie. Because he'd be like, oh, the universe is in jeopardy and there's something ripping me apart inside. And what's wrong with me? And Beverly would be like, well, what did you have for lunch? Like it was just they keep cutting through the tension together, and they're sitting there laughing at him at the booth at the restaurant. Like it was a lot of fun watching them
mhm.
just interact with this maniac.
Yeah. Um, the next thing I have, I find it hilarious how the window in the diner, when they park the car, it just starts vibrating like the surface of water acts upon certain sounds. I just thought that was really funny. It just was like, "Brr, brr, 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 brr."
Very true.
I
Yeah,
don't
I didn't
know.
even notice.
I don't think that's how glass works, but
Yeah, glass eventually would shatter
it would,
if
yeah,
vibrated
like
a high enough frequency. Yeah.
they wouldn't just start like bending back and forth
Like it
like
was
what it would
jello.
look like, yeah, like jello, like how the surface of water looks after, well, if it
Yeah.
there's certain sound. um and we find out that the laser hit a nexus point, which I think is even more backing for our multiverse theory.
Oh shit. That's I think Howard the Duck might be the first MCU movie ever, and I think we should tell the Avengers this immediately.
You know, now that you have watched this, you understand why I really want them to review this, because I think it would be hilarious to them watch it. because like I don't think that they would hate it. I really don't think they would.
I think they'd see a lot of fun out of it. I think that they're not. I mean, you're much younger than all of us, and I'd say the fact that you enjoyed the hell out of it is a great testament to the fact that they will likely as well, because they grew up when this shit was popular for kids. So to see animatronic characters like this that you're supposed to fall for, just totally endear and fall in love with, is exactly what they grew up with as well. So I don't think they'd hate it either. They'd have to unplug a little bit. I feel they got to put their phone down. I had to do the same thing, and I had to put the headphones in and ignore everything else going on and get into this movie, because that's what a movie from 1986 requires. But
yeah,
it's hard to do these days, but it's doable.
Yeah. I am so thankful to Brandon for how he has started almost every month now putting in their Patreon on what's it called, poll for their monthly review. They've started putting it in there just specifically for me. Man,
I'm gonna vote for it next time,
because I've talked to him privately on Zoom, where he's helped me a lot with setting up stuff for this podcast. And like I was telling him how, like, yeah, when I started asking for Howard the Duck, I was doing it just as a meme, because I thought it would be funny see you guys have to watch something that has such a terrible reputation. But like now that I've seen it, I literally want them to really, because I think they would actually really enjoy it, and it would be a really fun review.
It's an underrated movie for the genre that we're talking about, because comic book movie genre, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have had the sillier, crazier, funnier versions of comic book movies. We would have had the serious stuff. We would have had the Dark Knight. We would have had like the first Thor movies. We wouldn't have had the crazier things that followed after, and including Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's a very different tone now. To go back and look at something that would have had that similar tone, I truly think that this is the precursor to a version of that working again, 30 years later or 40 years later, however long. I'm not even sure. 19. Okay, so 2022.
Yeah, it would be
minus
22 years.
1986. So
it would be 22 years before Iron Man came out.
Yeah, so 22 years before, and you've got something that, the reason that reboots and remakes happen is because they had a good idea, but maybe couldn't have executed it the way they wanted to.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that should get remakes.
And honestly, I think this was just a film before its time as well.
Yes.
If this had been released now, and it had like updated graphics and stuff, I think that people would actually really love it. And I think 100%. They would love how much it has a lot of real life issues in it.
Yes, absolutely. And imagine the Overlord, the hardest pill to swallow in this movie is how the Dark Overlord alien looks outside of Jennings' body when he's, the creature at the end. Imagine that same kind of creature given the treatment that the Technicolor spewing creature at the beginning of Guardians 2, where they're trying to save the emulary batteries, or harbulary batteries, or whatever the hell Drax calls them. That creature looked so damn real and awesome on screen and in IMAX and whatever. Imagine that same kind of thing attributed to a fight with a freaking duck and a girl from a hairband.
Yeah.
It writes itself. It's so much more fun.
Yeah. I really do think it would have been great. And like, we haven't seen the 80s really in the MCU. So like if they were to like remake this movie with updated graphics, maybe you do the same story from this, but have it be the Seth Green and Howard the Duck from Guardians, and have like maybe it end with the Collector comes and picks him up. That would be a great film, honestly.
I would love to see a shot of that, like a flashback, almost like a recreation of that final battle. and then have it carry on from there. So the movie starts and opens with the big battle with the Overlord and Dr. Jennings and everybody, and then he just suddenly disappears. And then you catch up with him coming back to Earth, and he catches up with Beverly, and he catches up with Filzy and all these characters that he's come to know. I think that would be cool as a duck. Cool as duck.
Yeah.
I said it.
Cool as a duck fuck.
That's right. That's right. If I was gonna get a little more obscene about it, I'd say duck fuck. But you're right. That's
which almost happened in the film.
I'm not convinced it didn't happen after. You know what I'm saying?
It probably did.
They're both consenting duckadults. It's fine.
You've already mentioned a little bit about this, but I really love Howard's reaction to seeing the eggs on his plate. That was really hilarious.
I think that scene in the diner in general pops off the comedy of the movie in so many ways. I feel like the first half, if any part of the movie, there is a second act that drags a bit, and then that part where they start talking with Jennings in the diner and him transforming into the Overlord, that starts to speed things right back up again. And there's like the interaction with the waitress and stuff, and him saying like an evil like nothing you will ever know will engulf the earth. And then Crystal, the waitress, just says, "No, we get fights in here all the time." I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
And then him like saying, Beverly saying, you have to save him. He's my favorite duck. And then Jennings just being like, "You hardly know him." He's pointing out truths. She met him like 2 days ago. Like,
yeah.
It's really funny. That was some meta humor that only James Gunn could really do in the MCU.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch as well of notes from that scene. Like, so the first thing I had was, why did the Dark Overlord decide he needs to blow up those ketchup and mustard bars?
He was testing. He was testing his abilities.
I agree. A mustard at least is quite disgusting, but some people like it. You don't have to blow it up.
I know more people I think who hate ketchup. They're like, "Oh, the smell of it, ugh."
Ketchup, I really only eat with French fries, but mustard, I don't like eating mustard in anything. Yeah. That's thing from that scene I had was, it probably wasn't a good idea to call the demon a jerk off, or a jack off. I think it's a.
That's fair.
But I loved seeing Howard using pies to fight.
I forgot about that. He gets everybody, and they just fall right into them. Yep. It's so funny.
No,
his arms are so short.
He's like, who wants some? And they just like lining up, like, yeah, me, I want some. Yeah, I want some.
It's just like, yeah, you got one too. You didn't see that coming. It's like, how many just whipped cream pies does this place have? There's awesome. A pie fight. It was very much because people would joke, and I think I even watched like Siskel and Ebert at the time. Like you say, this movie was before its time. Siskel and Ebert at the time were the most popular critics, and they talked about this movie, and they said that this character was in the comics supposed to be like a Groucho Marx character. If you know anything about Groucho Marx or the Marx Brothers, they ended several of their comedy bits with a pie fight or a food fight. Okay. And it was like a callback to that kind of idea that this character is supposed to be an absolute, he would kind of screw with the usually the one percenters or the higher class, like a Groucho Marx, which we didn't see a ton of that, but it's like he's still messing with people who are bigots and who are being rude to him, and they get a pie in the face, and that's very Groucho Marx of him.
Yeah. I wrote I love seeing Howard swinging around the light fixture.
That was a good visual. That was very well done.
We have Beverly says, "Are you just gonna sit there?" And Demon responds, "Well, he took my eggs." Oh man.
So true. He had a
And
lot of good lines.
but like Howard is being thrown around by people, and you just see in the background the demon sees this, and he just starts laughing. I'm like, and it's not even like a maniacal laugh. It's just like he's just like, yeah,
He's kind of enjoying, yeah.
he's
These
enjoying
puny
things.
humans. Yeah. One of my
Oh,
favorites is he stands up. The demon finally stands up, and he's got producing this purple electricity around him, and he's zapping furniture, and he's showing much more power than he's ever shown. And the one server just goes, "Oh, he must have had the chili." I thought that was really good. That was such good timing.
oh god, yeah. I love the it was so hilarious the reaction from everyone when Beverly says that Howard is her boyfriend. Oh god, they all just stop for a
What?
second from turning
That's
from
disgusting.
yep.
I
Oh
say, there you
man.
go. Like, don't judge. Love wins. They're both consenting adults, and it's fine. They're both sentient beings with decision making of their own. You
You
know.
know, I kind of wonder what the furry community thinks of this film.
The amount of people that I hope have a persona that is like Howard the Duck. I would love
Oh
to see that.
god.
That'd be fantastic.
Hey, can you imagine if someone having a fursuit that literally they also above their fursuit they put on like the literally exact outfit of Howard the Duck? Oh god, it'd be
That'd be great.
hilarious.
You got
Oh
like a
man.
cigar going. Yeah.
Everyone preparing to cook Howard it was great.
They kept trying to put celery in his mouth. That like that's something you do with a duck.
Like they
You don't.
started saying
No
like
one eats the head.
they started thinking a bunch of different dishes that they were going to make with him. Like, oh my
Yeah.
god. I and then another line from Beverly where she says, "I hate violence. You got to go over there and beat them up." Oh man.
That is a good line. I didn't catch that at all. That's awesome.
Yeah. The knife flying to Howard to set him free, and then his reaction was just so great. I can't remember exactly what he said, but yeah. Oh man, the I wonder whether Howard was floating was done with wires or if it was done with CG, because it honestly looked pretty weird, real when they had him floating in the diner.
It's probably wires. I mean, it's possible. Like, I don't think CG for a movie with this budget would have been really all that conducive. Like, you
Well,
saw
yeah,
how
I
the
said,
you saw how
yeah,
the lightning looked.
yeah,
Like the lightning was a little
like,
rough,
they had
but
like, uh, it really felt like the special effects in this film, like whether they're practical or CG, like it felt like some of them they're absolutely fantastic, and then other
yeah,
ones are just completely awful.
yeah.
Like, oh my god.
I think when they started, especially when they very first started combining the two, practical and CG stuff, the CG stuff would probably be like wildly more expensive at the time. And
Hmm.
so the disbursement of how to blend it throughout the film was a lot harder to track down and a lot harder to
Oh
plan
yeah.
for. So like if you go with like really like it's almost like a have you ever watched Game of Thrones?
No, I have not.
In Game of Thrones, especially the latter like four or five seasons, you can tell where the budget goes in the season. There's one episode that has way more practical and CGI effects, and the rest of them are a little bit more story.
Mhm.
And it's very
Uh,
clear, like everybody got excited for that big episode that had that big battle or that big dragon scene
mhm.
or whatever, because that's where all the money went. And it
Yeah.
was like, okay, yeah, getting this many extras is impressive, but it's not quite as expensive as making this dragon look real. So
Yeah.
we're gonna put all our money into this one episode. So it's
Hmm.
like it's like trying
Yeah,
to
and
figure out the right moment.
yeah, every TV show they have to figure out in their budget how they're going to do things like that. And I know a lot of TV shows. I think they will always have at least one or two episodes a season where there's almost no CGI in it, and then there will be and then as a way to make it so big episodes like finales of seasons, they can actually use their complete budget for it. And they can use a little bit more because they didn't use it earlier in the season, because they have a set budget, not for each episode, but for each season as a whole. So they have to do that. And like I watch all of the DC shows on the CW, and like you'll see every season there are episodes where there is almost no CGI going on. It's just like punching and stuff, and then you will see other episodes, particularly finales, season premieres, and then the crossovers. They will have always they will use a whole bunch of money for those, and then they don't. Then there'll be other episodes where they don't use much at all.
I remember seeing that when I remember in Flash, when I was really big into Flash, I loved seeing a full body shot of King Shark.
Oh,
and I was like, holy crap, they made that look. That's the best thing they've done on screen as far as DC television.
They did a fantastic job on
Gorilla Grodd looks good too. But King Shark, that episode was so good. And then it makes you think like even older sitcoms, like if you hear the trope of like a flashback, a clip show, or a bottle episode, it's because they just don't leave one room and they just have clips that they've already shot, or they have a bottle episode where they just have the entire episode take place in one room together. And that's a normal thing because seasons of shows had to pick and choose their days to spend money.
And you mentioned both Grodd and King Shark looking really good. Have you seen the Grodd versus King Shark episode? Like,
no,
that is a really fun episode.
Okay, I haven't. I think it was the season where is it Elastic Man? What's the name of the guy? Elongated Man. So the season where he got introduced is where it's not necessarily because of anything specific that happened, but some of the show probably came out or came back from a big break, and I started watching that. I have not gone back to the Flash since Elongated Man was introduced. So I need to go back to it because I'm sure that their budgets went up and
they've had honestly the past few seasons, like it kind of feels like some of their budget has gone very much down for episodes, but I think that may be more of that it's because of COVID. They aren't able to do nearly as much with it. But there have been some good episodes in recent seasons, but there's definitely not nearly as many good episodes in recent seasons as there were in the earlier seasons. Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. I feel like it's really tough to keep that consistency. I feel bad for all these shows that have just started ramping up, and I feel like they could have gone so much further and so much better if they had not had this pandemic happen. And obviously there's a billion other reasons to feel bad about the pandemic, but it's just a shame with some of these shows that we're just finding their footing, some of them.
And honestly, I feel bad for those shows in that they and that so many people are shitting on them because of other things that they weren't able to do because of the pandemic. And it was like, you got to understand they're not able to do the full things you want them to do because they can't have massive amounts of people running from a bad guy, because you can't have massive amounts of people in a room together. That's
not everybody has the money that Shang-Chi had, where they were able to take mannequins at that big fight club that they had with the Abomination and stuff. Half those people in the crowd were mannequins that were digitized later to move a little bit sometimes. So it was like maybe like 6 foot apart, if not more, and then there'd be a real person. So I didn't notice. Did you notice?
No, I didn't notice.
It's crazy.
Good to go. The next thing I have is the demon tells Beverly, "I need your body," and Beverly responds, "Creep. I've heard that one before." All right, I wrote, God, this guy really is a creep. Like, oh my God.
Sure.
Yeah.
And to your point, like that's the type of thing that they would that's kind of a little before its time, I'd say. To that same thing.
And then I wrote as well for that same scene. Nowhere else will you ever probably see a demon put his long ass tongue in a car later.
Very
Oh
true.
my
That
god.
was hard to swallow. No pun intended. That
Ugh,
was tough to watch.
that was
Yeah.
fucking hell.
That was some practical effects that I didn't want to see.
Oh man. Like, the next thing I have is while Phil is in the police car and he asks them, "Where's my baseball cap?" And I just wrote, "Phil, always looking for what's important."
Yeah,
Oh,
Phil very I feel like Phil has a quick shift, but not that far. He's still Phil. And Phil, I
mhm.
like that it becomes Philzy. I like that Howard starts calling him Philzy instead of a billion other insults that he could give him. But
Yeah,
so his arc isn't that big, but it is at least enough for him to know or recognize that Howard is a friend and Beverly's a friend,
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
and they matter more than fame.
hmm I wrote it. That's pretty convenient that finding a makeshift plane right across the street from the diner.
Yeah. What do they say? They say like, "Oh, this person's hobby is going to become our best chance," or whatever.
Yep.
And he's like, "I'm going to be honest with you, I don't like flying or whatever." Like
Oh,
it's a nice moment, a little
uh,
Wright brothers action.
did I say I wrote um is I don't I think this is the same diner as before. But we didn't see the name of it before the police came. The name is Joe Romano's Cajun Sushi. That's that may be the weirdest name I've ever seen. I mean, for a diner.
That explains a lot more than I expected because like the
And
vibe in there with the waitress's like bandana around her head. I was like, wait, why the hell does she have like a sushi restaurant thing on her head?
Mhm.
It was interesting.
And it probably asks more questions as well that as it answers some too.
I think it's perfectly making fun of American fusion,
Mhm.
American fusion restaurants.
Yeah. Oh, the thing, what's weird is about it, I think, is that they like. So this place is, I guess, a Cajun sushi place, but the specials on the
God.
menu are literally normal diner food.
True, it's just eggs.
Yeah.
It's regular egg dishes. Okay,
hmm
where's the sushi exactly?
Uh,
It's just in their
and
attitude.
like
They're just
and none of the food that was thrown around during the match day of the what you would expect from side like that either. So yeah.
I feel like it was a
Um.
diner that was excited to have one sushi dish and no
mhm.
one ever orders it, but they slap it on the name anyways.
I guess. Yeah. I love that Howard is trying to fly a makeshift plane to save Beverly,
Mhm.
and also it looked actually very real. Like when they were flying that plane, that actually looked really real. I'm wondering if they actually flew a makeshift plane to make the film.
It's
So,
possible. I mean,
yeah,
that would be in the trivia section. I have no idea. Did look
there's
real though.
nothing on it about that on IMDb, so I don't know, but I think that's really interesting how that definitely looked real. Them when they were flying it didn't look like there was a green screen or anything.
Hmm.
Uh, and I
For
said,
1986, especially, that was some impressive stuff.
yeah, and I said I wrote, and this is when and the Dark Overlords, this demon, went to the power plant. I wrote that 1 million kilowatts of power, or I don't think, yeah, 1 million and kilowatts of power was what they said. That seems like quite a lot. And I'm surprised with how many Back to the Future references there are in this film. They did make it 1.21 million kilowatts instead of just 1 million. Um, because 1.21 gigawatts is which is 1.21 gigawatts is what they say in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
That is 1.21
gigawatts.
that is 1.21 on kilowatts. Yeah, that
Wow.
like they were so close to the actual number that was
Yeah.
in Back to the Future, but I'm really surprised they didn't go for that. With how many Back to the Future references are in this, it just surprised me. I say I wrote was from as while the cops are chasing him as he's flying, he's on top of that truck, and I wrote, I wonder how it would feel to be chasing a duck and he drops a banner on your car that says duck, and that causes you to drive into the water. That's gotta feel bad.
You got outsmarted by a duck. My favorite earlier with that same. This wasn't a big character. I thought it was very strange how much screen time he would get. But that cop character earlier, he says, "How am I supposed to explain a manhunt for a duck?" And then his assistant is like next in line is Lieutenant or Officer Hansen says, "It's a duck hunt," and then he's just like, he's like, just don't start today, Hansen. Like, I'm wondering what Hansen says on a regular day that makes him go like, this is just more Hansen bullshit. Like, it's the perfect answer. It's a duck hunt. It's not bad an answer at all.
I took that as more of like, he was just like, he was mad because he was like, that's not what I meant by this. I did not mean what are we going to literally call this?
He's like, I can't say that over the radio, Hansen. Come on. God, you're demoted. You're back to the desk. You're the mail room now.
The next thing I had was I love the villain and he's stopped by a police car and they ask him for his license and registration, and he just and they call him Jack, and he just says, I have no license and I'm not Jack.
I think that his character plays it very well. There's that actor, I mean.
Actually, I wrote, and I understand this is definitely a plot thing, but if hitting one car with electricity exploded all the cars, why didn't it also explode the truck? I feel like if it was going to destroy every other car are there, it probably would also destroy would also blow up the truck.
Not wrong. I feel like his powers are few and far between as far as making sense.
Yeah, I it's definitely like a very plot thing. Yeah.
But he's an overlord. So, I mean, I guess that means you choose not to destroy the truck and the truck will be fine.
Yes.
But it does wonders for your hair.
And for this point on, I started following as Howard called Phil Filzy, so I started writing as Filzy. Getting stuck upside down, hitting the water repeatedly was hilarious.
That was good.
Yeah,
that was good. Him and Filzy made a good team by the end. I was very glad that Filzy had a very different character by that point, because he was incredibly annoying in the first act of the movie.
But Filzy still was very willing to sell Howard out. Like he as immediately after the water hitting him repeatedly, the cops started shooting at them, and he started saying, "Don't shoot! I'm an innocent hostage. The duck's some lunatic." And you hear Howard say, "What?" And then Filzy says, "He's a duck terrorist. He hijacked the plane."
Wow. I remember a brief point of time when that joke would not have landed well. No pun intended. That movie has a very specific, that joke in that movie has a very specific place and time where it was okay.
Um, and next I have as they're about to get to the lab where it says Filzy says that was a lot of fun, but I'd like to get off now. Slow down, slow down. Well, Howard just starts humming to himself. Oh my god, it's hilarious.
Howard, I think, is a character that we could easily have his own movie now, and I don't know why. I don't know why people would be hesitant.
He was supposed to have a animated series on Hulu, but then when Marvel Studios took over Marvel TV, they canceled it before they even started work on it. So yeah, they had a whole bunch of shows that were supposed to come on Hulu, and then they decided to cancel most of them and only release MODOK and Hitmonkey. Like,
wow,
they
made it through.
The original plan was that they were going to have MODOK, Hitmonkey, Howard the Duck, and I think there was one other show, and they were going to after all those shows came out, they were going to put them together doing a parody show of the Defenders that was called the Offenders.
Wow, that is complicated.
Mm-hmm. And the Howard the Duck show, if I remember right, it was planned to be made by Kevin Smith, which I think that would have been really interesting.
Yeah, no, Seth Green behind the voice and Kevin Smith behind the writing. I would absolutely watch that. That's a really good. I would love to see Kevin Smith go back to doing comic book related comedy, because he's been doing his own kind of horror movies in the last 10 years, and it really doesn't. I'm not a big fan.
He did a few years ago do the Jay and Silent Bob remake or reboot, and and that he's also gonna be, I think he has planned that he's making Mallrats 2 and also I think Clerks 3.
Yes, that Clerks 3 I'd heard of. I know there's a documentary also coming out about Clerks, and his whole basically his whole career. There's a documentary coming out about him. So if that comes out right before Clerks 3, I wouldn't be surprised. That's good. That's good hype.
Yeah, a Howard the Duck animated show being made by Kevin Smith. That part of what interests me about that is I don't think I've ever seen anything animated made by Kevin Smith, and I think that would be really cool to see. I know there is a Silent Bob and Jay animated series, but I have not watched that. Yeah.
Is there that? I wondered about, because there's a Clerks animated series. Is that the one?
That may be it. Yeah.
It might be the same one. Yeah. Because that came out between Clerks 1 and Clerks 2, but after the popularity of, I think, 3 or 4 more of his movies came out, and then people were like, "Oh, the guy who made Clerks," and then his career soared. He has an animated series, and it was pretty funny. Yeah, the Clerks formula works well for animated.
Yeah. The next thing I wrote is when Howard and Filzy are trying to get into the weapons room, and Howard has a kick strong enough to kick down the door. And I wrote it, though I didn't talk really much about the scene earlier in the film, but I wrote kind of as a callback to a scene from earlier in the film. I think strength might actually be one of Howard's powers.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, the guy knows Quack Fu, and he's an alien, so there's really no precedence there for us to know what duck people's strength is. Especially if they've evolved from beyond the ducks that we know, they shed their wings, they become more upright, and they walk around. Like, they could have easily developed super strength comparatively to humans. So there you go.
Yeah,
super strength. That's a superhero. That's why he's in the Endgame fight. Because he can kick some ass.
Wait, I honestly, and since this was before I watched this film, um, before Endgame came and I think it might have even been before Infinity War came out. uh, I I wrote that I was hoping that the collector sold the, I think it was a Power Stone. I was hoping that he would have sold it to Howard the Duck. And I was thinking, you know how hilarious it would be to have a scene where Thanos kills Howard the Duck to get the Power Stone?
He's like, I
Oh
am
no.
inevitable. He's like, ah, crap. Let me just
I,
get one more
I,
puff of this cigar.
I feel like I because there's so many people who hate Howard the Duck, I feel like that would have been such a satisfying thing to a lot of people to see. And I think it would have been hilarious.
I think the people that hate Howard the Duck have never watched this. I can honestly
Probably.
say after seeing it, they don't know like I could see honestly, and I feel like I was one of those people once upon a time, not recently, but I heard that Howard the Duck would pop up in something now, and I'd be like, oh, that's a reference to something I've never seen. That's dumb or whatever. Or that's such a reference to a time where comics were dumb. And
Mhm.
that's what I just kind of chalked it up to, was that it was a time where
Uh,
anything got made. And then nowadays it's like, no, people want to see the stuff that they loved growing up. And
yeah.
if people were fans of Howard the Duck, that's why he made it into
Mhm.
anything now.
You know,
Give him a chance. And then I go and watch this movie and love it. And
yeah. Hey,
history is made.
I just thought about, Emmy from the Avengers. He keeps bringing up how her favorite Batman are like the corny 80s A's and 90s Batman movies. I think she would
Yeah.
absolutely love this. I think that
Yes.
she would be thrilled watching this.
I think she would enjoy it more than the other two for sure.
Yeah. Um
Yeah.
the next thing I wrote was, how does this Earth computer know the name Nexus of Somnus when the villain and puts it's in the coordinates?
It was 1986. No one knew how computers worked back then.
Oh yes, they're definitely of cosmic power that can tell what the name of another planet is that is
Yeah.
not known to
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah. I still don't really get HTML. I don't know. It's a
Mhm.
mystery to me. Is this via JavaScript? Maybe that's what it was.
The next thing I wrote was, hey, that's a big gun that Howard and Filsey grabbed.
Too big for those guys.
Oh man,
No.
like it kind of reminded me when I saw it of the when in the Avengers Coulson uses the giant gun against Loki. He was like, oh, he's
Yes.
like, I always wanted to know how that
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what it does. That
Uh,
was so good. He's like,
oh
you
man.
lack conviction.
And then they bring that gun back in Agents of Shield when Fury shows up near the end of the first season, where he's like, I think you like this gun, and Coulson's like, yeah, I like it.
Of course. I mean, it's it may not have done everything he wanted it to, but
Oh
it
man,
was still a lot of fun to hold.
yeah.
Had the you had the power of the destroyer in your hand. It was pretty fun.
I really enjoy watching Howard drive around in the gunner vehicle. Uh,
Yeah, me too. That was awesome.
yeah. Um, I love how Beverly and Filzy are arguing over who's had a worse night.
It's like, I was arrested. I was put in a cop car, and she's like, "Excuse me," and then she mentions the like cigarette lighter. He's like, "Oh, gross." At least they can find common ground.
Mhm. Um, the next thing I have is when the Overlord leaves the body of Jennings, and we finally see it in all of its CG glory, I guess. As and the really big reason I even it's memorable, I think, is it looked like they made a physical creature for it and then they used a green screen or
Yes,
CGI'd it in, which I find
absolutely.
such a weird thing. Why would you
Yeah,
create a physical thing and
size.
then make I guess like
It's purely
you
size. They
have
create. I'm looking at it right now. That thing is a rubber puppet that they then had to
like
make gigantic. It's
they
probably the
definitely
size of a hand.
they definitely would have had enough money in the budget to make a full size one and
Uh,
not make it look not it just be so weird that it's definitely a real thing that they definitely CGI'd in.
well, just think of how much material it takes to make a puppet. 20 sizes the 20 times the
Yeah.
size of something this big. So they make this. This costs about like maybe $30, maybe 200 to make it look good. Have it like all animatronic or just by fingers, and then they just blow it up on a big screen. That's a lot cheaper than making something that's 60 by 60 feet big. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they did most of Star Wars. The
Mhm.
early Star Wars, that's all
But
those
it looked
monsters were
better,
tiny.
looked so much better in Star
Yeah,
Wars.
yeah. I
It
mean,
didn't
yeah,
look great in Star Wars, but it looked better than this.
that's very true.
Like, oh
Very
my
true.
god, I have tried looking back at those original Star Wars films, and like, there are definitely a lot of things that do not age well.
Oh yeah, it takes
Oh
a lot more. Thankfully, they have such good stories that
yeah,
if you're really into them. For me, it's always hard for me to gauge how the average viewer could watch them and get into them, because I mean I just accept that they look that way
yeah,
because they didn't have the money or the technology yet. I
yeah.
just love them for the fact that the place that they hold in cinema's history. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like that, just like, okay, I gotta love them because wow, did they ever spawn so many more great things, as well as they were the first at the time. No one had
Uh,
seen something like that.
yeah, and I've heard so many I've heard so many things of how like people back then they were like, "Oh, this looks so realistic" and stuff. And I'm like, and looking back on it now, I'm like, this is so obviously toys.
Well, just
This is
imagine
so obviously toys.
if you'd never seen a gigantic image moving on a screen. People, have you ever heard about the I think it was called The Train? Honestly, one of the first motion pictures before sound involved. One of the first motion pictures they projected onto a screen in a theater was called The Train. I could be wrong about the name of it, but it was just an image of a train, a video of a train coming toward the camera, and it breezes by the camera. And in that screening room, people in their first viewing of it were scared. They thought the train was going to hit them. They'd never seen it
Wow.
before. It was magic.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
to their knowledge, their little tiny brains compared to our big brains filled with all the things
Hmm.
on the internet that we
Yeah.
know about VFX. It was novel for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine for sure, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's funny to me that
Uh
people were scared of that.
yeah. I said, bro, it is the Overlord's beam phasing Beverly and Filzy out of reality, which
I didn't get that either. I thought they were dead. I was like, why are they? He's like hitting them with the same beam that blew up a bunch
it,
of cars, was it not? Oh,
and
that
then
worried me.
like after he had stopped shooting it at them, like they were still phasing in and out of reality for a bit. I was like, wait, he stopped hitting them. Why are they still like this?
Yeah, it was tricky trying to track what the parameters of the Overlord's abilities were. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how powerful was this guy? I'm like, okay, he could just do whatever. He just blew some breath at people and they flew back. Like, okay, what else he
Mm-hmm.
got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly do feel kind of bad about how I did not have much about this this final battle, but like there's really not a lot to say about it. out
There's
the
not.
spot.
It was
Oh, it's
it's harder to get through than a lot of the rest of the movie, and that's the way a lot of movies, good movies with great concepts, have bad third act problems,
mhm.
and that's one of them.
Yeah.
It's hard to really make that interesting.
I did really enjoy Howard messing with them while they thought he was dead, and like they're crying over him, and then he's like, Howard is not here.
And then he just snaps out. He's like, "Oh, I don't know, it got into me." It's just messing.
Oh, it's
That's great.
great. And then I wrote how I love this concert ending, and they made him look like Marty McFly. And then
Yeah,
particularly, I love the original song that they made for this concert. I thought that was really
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
Uh,
The Howard the Duck song at the end. Yeah,
mhm.
it was great, and it was a very much a thing of the times that followed. Like any movie that was in that genre of, okay, this is insane, we want you to love it. The Ninja Turtles did the same thing. They wrote a song for that
Mhm.
movie, and they wrote a Ninja Turtle song. They wrote an Adams Family
I
song. They made a new content song for the end of
I
most
think
movies like that.
though it works best for this film because of the fact that Beverly is in a band, so
Mm-hmm.
it makes
100%.
sense for and with how he became their manager during the film, so it makes sense them finishing the film with continuing that.
This is definitely one of the earlier ones that ever did it, maybe one of the first ones that ever did it. So for it to make way
Mhm.
more sense in the context of things, like them having a band, like I'm pretty sure Ninja Turtles 2 just ended with Vanilla Ice coming out and singing a song that he had somehow
Oh
made up in
god.
his head about the Ninja Turtles. It doesn't make any sense, but he was there in the movie as a cameo, so why not make a song? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah. So my final thoughts on the film. I expected to hate this film, obviously, because I knew the reputation, but I honestly gotta say, Howard the Duck is fucking amazing.
Mm,
And I highly recommend watching it to anyone who has it. And I really wish this got a sequel.
yeah.
Are there any final thoughts you have on the film?
To me, this movie, especially when it took off with the Dr. Jennings turning into an overlord and having more characters than just Howard creating the weird universe. Like at first, it was just kind of like I say, a duck out of water kind of comedy and kind of a tragedy at times. But
Oh
then when
yeah.
they started bringing in otherworldly characters, it felt very much like this is clearly something that James Gunn had in a big place in his heart when he wanted to make a lot of the movies that preceded the Guardians movies, but also the Guardians movies themselves are a family friendly version of what he does best. And he likes weird cosmic comedies.
Yeah.
He likes great music. He likes characters like Rocket, especially. It makes me think about Howard the Duck a lot in the
Mm-hmm.
jokes that they make at Rocket's expense about just being a weird, tiny, little, unassuming badass. And in so many ways, and yeah, it was just felt like if you were going to have a precursor to something like we have now with Guardians, I'm if it wasn't for movies like Howard the Duck, we wouldn't have as much acceptance and excitement for strange, funny cosmic comedies like Guardians now.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And like I'm so glad you brought that up because I hadn't thought about that really at all while watching it. So that's one of the reasons why it's so nice to be able to actually have someone I can talk about this with, because like there's so much to this film that it's something that deserves talking to people about. It's not something that you just silently enjoy to and aren't able to really talk to anyone about. It's a film where I imagine, even though I loved it just as watching it, I think if I had a bunch of friends together with me at the same time, it would be even more of an enjoyable experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would agree that this is a watch party type thing to throw on and watch with a bunch of friends, and really, especially friends who like to talk about cinema and like talking about things like the MCU, this is some great stuff. And I'm glad to hear your insights on it too, because I was just sitting here in a a bubble, a vacuum, thinking about the things that I took from it, and I was very glad to hear your thoughts as well, man.
I remember talking to like I don't remember if it was when it was, but I remember you saying like you weren't going to watch this probably with your girlfriend because you didn't think she would probably like it. But I honestly, because it's not really like a normal superhero film, I think she might still enjoy it.
I think the fact that she even would consider dipping her toe in the world of furries, she would like this movie a lot more than she knows.
Like,
and that is something I will never tell her that I said on this podcast. And you don't tell anyone other than all the people listening.
Yeah. And I don't know your girlfriend, so I can't. So I wouldn't be telling her either. So
hey, it's one of the qualities that made her from my girlfriend to my fiance. I accept everything and everything, anything and everything about her.
Yeah. That was my immediate thought when you told me that you don't think your girlfriend or your fiance would want to watch it with you. It's like, this is not your regular superhero film. This is not good. She may actually have a different opinion towards this than she would with those.
I think it's one of those things I would put on.
Tell you that.
Yeah. I think if her and I had a nice weed gummy and then just sat on the couch and it just happened to be on, she'd have originally maybe be doing something else, maybe Cookie Clicker or something, and then she'd look up and be like, what's that funny little duck? And then she'd just be immediately enthralled by the adventures of the funny little duck.
Mm-hmm. I've never done weed gummies, but I do feel like being that calm and watching this would be a really fun experience.
Yeah, if you take them in lower doses, especially, you don't need a lot, but it just, if you have any preconceived notions of what movies you think you like, and you're like, oh, I wouldn't like that because it's black and white, or I wouldn't like that because it's made in this year, you start to put down those defenses and go, oh, someone made this story, whatever the hell year, it doesn't matter. And you just kind of go, okay, this is storytelling regardless of what year it came out and what story is being told.
I wonder if that's how my brother was when he was watching Hamilton and with my sister-in-law, because like they were both high as hell at the time, and I and like I was watching it with him for a while, and I was just like, this is so boring. Well, they are both getting into this like crazy. I'm like, I don't understand why you're enjoying it. It's like, don't get me wrong, there's some great songs in Hamilton.
Oh yeah,
but as a film as a whole, I could not get into it. And
sorry, go
ahead. Yeah, I don't really have anything more there.
Well, the same thing with like me and my fiance watched Hamilton and I had varying opinions about it, but we watched Encanto, and I didn't tell her that Lin-Manuel Miranda had anything to do with Encanto, and she does not really like him. She finds him kind of cringy. She's like, I think he's really full of himself, or I think he doesn't have a very powerful voice or whatever. And whatever, her opinions aside, she didn't know that he had anything to do with Encanto. We watched Encanto. We got into it. By about the third song, we were like, okay, this is awesome. And then by the end, she was like, that was really good. And I was like, did you see whose name's coming up? And then she comes up and she's like, oh, you tricked me. It's like, sorry, man. The guy's talented. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching some weeks ago. Have you ever seen in the TV show House MD?
My roommates were big into House when I was living with them for like 4 years. They were nuts about House constantly.
So I didn't really watch much of that when I was a kid, but I always knew of it because I was like, I watched a lot of like those procedural TV shows, and I like about a month ago I was binging House, and there are a few episodes in that have Lin Miranda in it.
Yeah.
This is before he's done Hamilton. This is before his career popped off. And like he in the show, he was like doing this exact same thing he became known for, of creating song out of like these regular or situations, sort of like how the main character in Tick Tick Boom does, is where he's just randomly just starts making songs up of things. And like I thought that was really cool how like this guy, like he create as this character in the show who basically is doing what he does in real life, as a career. And in the show, like he was in a mental asylum because they thought he was crazy, and that's why he's doing all these songs all the time. But yeah, I just thought that was a really cool thing.
That's awesome. It seems way better than my first experience with him, which was he was basically like a day player in an episode of The Sopranos. When he played like a bellhop, and he was pushing a big cart, and Tony Soprano was like, "Hey, what hotel is this?" And he's just like, "Go fuck yourself." I was like, that was it. I was like, Lin-Manuel Miranda was in that. He was in it for 3 seconds. Who was this guy? It was such a weird choice. But I was like, wait, okay. I mean, every actor's got to start somewhere. For everybody.
Yeah.
Sorry for cussing. If I cuss too much
I don't care. Like I set these all to explicit because this is a show where I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be how I am in real life. Like I don't cuss all the time in real life, mainly because I'm around my mom all the time. But and I know she doesn't like it, but I do sometimes when I get it heated about something. I will curse, and that's so. And when I'm with people like you who don't care, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to like restrain myself at all.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah,
good to know. I was the one who got my mom cussing like a trucker. It's quite interesting.
I think it's funny. I was probably the first person in my of my brothers who actually heard my mom ever say the F word.
That's a fun moment.
Yeah, so I was egging her on because a few years ago for my birthday, I made it to my birthday fundraiser thing you get on Facebook. I did fuck cancer as it, and like my mom, I was like, why would you want to do like a sign that's like with that name? And like, because I think it's a great a charity, and like
Catchy name.
I agree. Fuck cancer. And
right?
I was like, and I kept egging her on, be like, so and what was this word that is so bad that's in it? And I kept egging her on until finally she was like, she just said fuck. I'm like, yes, I finally got you to say it. Oh god.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Man.
Oh man. So we have some trivia from the film. These are all from IMDb. So, according to reports at the time of the movie's release, George Lucas had just built the $50 million Skywalker Ranch complex, and he was counting on this film to get him back in the black. When it bombed, he was forced to sell off assets to stay afloat. His friend Steve Jobs, the CEO of Apple, offered to help by buying Lucasfilm's newly launched CGI animation division for a price above market value. Lucas, in dire straits and thankful for the assistance, agreed. That division of Lucasfilms that was sold off to Steve Jobs eventually became Pixar Animation Studios.
I knew you were going to say Pixar. That's amazing. Holy shit, Howard the Duck had such a huge role in
Yeah.
so many movies then.
Uh,
And not even the
um,
ones that it inspired by it being the type of movie it was, but oh my god, that's insane.
yep.
I didn't know that.
So if Howard the Duck had not failed, we wouldn't have Pixar. And it does
Not
make
in the
me
form that it
wonder,
is, yeah.
though, what a Lucasfilm's animation studios would have been like.
I mean, it all ended up in
Or
the same camp now, right? So it's all owned by Disney.
yeah,
And so we get Star Wars, we get Pixar, we get Disney stuff all toiling around in the same pot.
the
And
thing
so
is,
you
I
get things like
like
the Bad Batch is amazing, and like the look of everything
this would have
looks.
been Lucasfilm's animation in the 80s. And that would have been very
Mm,
different from anything we got today.
sure,
And I
sure.
I don't I don't know what that would have been ended up being like. And I I imagine that they would not have come out with anything that was nearly as good as, wasn't Pixar's first film like Toy Story or something?
Toy Story
Like
was a
was
big one, but it was before that was before they were picked up by Disney too. So that was
yeah,
like the
that would.
flagship movie of theirs. Yeah,
We wouldn't have gotten Toy Story most likely if
very
Howard the
true.
Duck hadn't bombed.
Yeah, we might have gotten animated series by or Star Wars animated series sooner than Clone Wars, but we would not have
Yeah,
gotten Toy Story, which then led to Bug's Life, which then led to
we
Nemo and everything else. It's
we
crazy to
probably would
think.
have gotten a Howard the Duck animated movie.
Which I mean, I'd rather get it now. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'd rather get it now than following this one immediately. I think this one needed some time to gain traction, especially seeing that it didn't make back its budget when it
Yeah.
first came out.
Yeah. The next I had was Universal executives Sid Sheinberg and Frank Price were allegedly arguing about who was to blame for greenlighting this film, and that argument ended in a fistfight. And I should say that I was allegedly arguing. That's what it says on IMDb. They were allegedly arguing.
It's a
Yeah.
clean distinction. It's a good call. Yeah, I did see that like 5 minutes before we started rolling was that two execs were having a fist fight of who greenlit this shit.
Yeah.
Who the hell?
Yeah. So the next thing I have is that Howard the Duck made his second cinematic appearance in the post-credit scene of Guardians of the Galaxy from 2014, which was exactly 28 years and 1 day after Howard the Duck's theatrical release in 1986.
Wow. I like to think that the voice is different so much that I like to think this is an older version of the one from this movie. Like this seems like a mid maybe early 20s or no, late 20s, early 30s Howard. And we're seeing like a late 40s, early 50s Howard in the new ones.
I kind of wonder, since the actor who voiced Howard the Duck in this, he is still alive, I wonder if he would have come back if they asked him to, knowing how popular Marvel is now.
I think
or
that
if he would be not wanting to because of knowing how people were angry after this one.
I think if the character and the cult following of Howard the Duck was bigger, then they would have had him. I think that they were just doing a nod when they did him in the couple cameos and Guardians, that they were going, okay, this is a deep cut that a very few people will like. Let's get a famous guy who probably also likes him. And it was Seth Green doing his best, his best Howard the Duck voice, which was different. But
knowing Seth Green, I imagine he probably would have been a fan of this film.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially growing up at a time he was in movies when this movie was coming out. Like he was like 6 to 7 to 8 years old when this movie was around, and he was already in them.
Yeah.
And starting his career. Yeah.
So the next thing I have is the evil overlord is based on the Marvel villain who originally brought Howard to Earth. His full title in the comics is Thog the Netherspawn, Overmaster of Somnus.
Damn.
Yeah.
I feel like the further we go with the MCU, especially, we're going to see more names like that.
But I imagine if anyone's gonna have that long of name, it's gonna be a joke in the MCU. Like,
yeah,
if they're an actual character who's going to have a big role, they would not probably give them that long of a name.
Very true.
Yeah.
It's the type of name that if Downey Jr. was still in the series, he would have been like, okay, Squidward. Like he would have just cut him off and given him some other nickname instead and shut him right down.
Yeah. The next I have was the movie was nominated for 7 Golden Raspberry Awards in 1986, including Worst Director, Worst Original Song, Worst Supporting Actor, and the picture won 4 Razzies for Worst New Star, the 6 guys and gals in the duck suit, Worst Visual Effects, Worst Screenplay, and Worst Picture, of which in Worst Picture it tied with Under the Cherry Moon.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either. Shortly after the movie was released, Frank Price quit his job as the head of Universal Studios. The studio that funded the film. Variety reported the story of him leaving a Universal Pictures with the headline "Duck Cooks Price's Goose."
God, that's so lame.
Due to the movie's disastrous box office performance domestically, the title was changed to Howard, a New Breed of Hero, for release outside of the US.
I did see that. It was released in Japan or something with that, or France with that same name. That's a good name too, though.
Yeah, it is. It would have worked for this. John Cusack and Martin Short both auditioned for the voice of Howard.
John Cusack.
Yeah. John Cusack
damn.
And
oh
Martin
my God.
Short. Yeah.
Wow. That would have been way bigger. They're both huge now. Well, Martin Short still is huge.
There's another name that I have another trivia thing that it is even bigger. But first, before I go to that one, I have the original Marvel comics were similar to the style of Deadpool, actually, with adult-oriented humor, and this was significantly toned down for the film to make it appeal to younger audiences.
Fair.
And like, I honestly feel like I would have loved to see this even more if it had adult-oriented humor, or for a lot more of the film. There was definitely some in there, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So the next thing I have, this is a really, really big one. So in July of 2021, actor Chip Zien, who voiced Howard in the film, revealed in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter for the film's 35th anniversary that Robin Williams was originally cast for the role, but Robin quit after only a week of frustration over syncing his voice to the Duck's animatronic Bill. An actor to voice Howard had not been cast yet during filming, so all of Howard's lines were read on set by the puppeteers, and the bill was moved to fit their bland delivery. That made it impossible for Williams to use his wild improvisational style in post-production because it didn't work with the bill movements.
Yeah. I think the only two, and maybe there's more, but the only two instances where I remember Robin Williams doing voiceover work was the genie in Aladdin and Batty in Fern Gully. And in both of those, I'm pretty positive they did animate it after he had a chance to improvise in the recording booth. And that's the best way to have Robin Williams be in anything. So that is a shame that they could, because can you imagine it can be a completely different movie? That movie would have exploded. Oh my God. because that really was like they had great written jokes. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
But the written jokes plus ad lib, like that would have been explosive.
Yeah. The thing is, like, that would have either made it probably be one of Robin Williams' biggest films, or it would be the film that destroyed his career.
Yeah, well, that guy bounced back from a lot of shitty movies. I'll be honest. He was like a skipping stone. Somehow the shitty movies just didn't stick to him for very long.
Well, yeah, he was just too good of an actor that the films he's good in, he shines so much. So this is one of only 2 films based on a Marvel comic to win the Razzie Award for Worst Picture, the other being Fantastic Four 2015. And oddly, in both cases, it tied with another film for the award.
Wow. It tied for not a Marvel.
So both Fantastic Four 2015 and Howard the Duck, they both won the Worst Picture award, but in their years they both tied with another film.
Do you have them?
I don't have the one that was with Fantastic Four, but as I said earlier, you already said you don't recognize the one that was with the Howard the Duck.
Okay.
And the US TV version of the film adds extra bubbles to hide the chest area of the female duck in the bathtub.
Of course.
There was actually a video game sequel to this called Howard the Duck: The Adventure on Volcano Island, that released the same year as this release. And then we have the last bit of trivia from IMDb was the police lieutenant Walker is a nod to voice actor Frank Walker, who he voiced various cops and sheriffs on Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? He was also the voice of Fred on that. And then after that series, most other series after that, he continued voicing Fred, and he was also the voice of Scooby and everything after that, if I remember right.
Oh my God. What a nod. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
The 2015 movie that Fantastic Four tied with for the Razzies was 50 Shades of Grey. Rightfully so.
I have not watched 50 Shades of Grey, but
that's fine.
But
I'm okay if we never watch that for the podcast.
Well, you just have to make sure you don't betray me ever again.
I'll be on as many podcasts as I can. That's my rule.
Oh man,
it's my contract.
I imagine even though I have not seen a 50 Shades of Grey, so I don't know how bad it is. I feel like it probably is worse than Fantastic Four from 2015, because like I'm not a fan of the 2015 Fantastic Four, but I honestly don't think it is as bad as most people say. I think I think the worst thing that can be said about it is it is a little bit boring, but I think if they added more action to it and some more comedy to it, it would have been probably close to as good as the 2005 Fantastic Four. I don't think they had a bad cast as for the film.
It was too dark, and like you say, action and comedy would have absolutely helped it. It had a fantastic cast. Some of those actors went on to do great things afterwards, and definitely did great things before. But yeah, that shit was convoluted and took too long to give them their powers.
I will never forgive them though for taking the thing's pants.
As you shouldn't. Unforgivable.
So the answer to the trivia question from earlier was Splash Dance, Breeders of the Lost Stork, and Little Chickadee.
Little Chickadee, that was the one. W.C. Fowles and May Nest were in Little Chickadee.
Mhm.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh,
Brilliant duck puns or waterfowl puns. Chickadees aren't waterfowl, they're regular fowl. Never mind. Yeah, that's amazing.
So is there any final things you want to say before we end this off?
This was fantastic. I think this is my favorite episode we've ever recorded.
Yeah,
As
I would
much as
say
I
probably
love
as well.
watching the 70s Hulk. I'm excited to watch the next 70s Hulk, believe me, but this was so much fun and such a silly delight and a surprise and a delight. And I'm glad you loved it too.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. And if you like this Gamma analysis, please give a 5-star review. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film, so please let me know. And if you'd like to listen to more from me, please subscribe. Many more Gamma analysis is coming from me, so keep on the lookout. This again is your host, Smash Trivia John, signing off. And I want this to be a warning for everyone of what will happen if you betray me. Hey everyone, Future John here. I just want to let everyone know that the episode that was supposed to release today, where I forced the Avengers to rewatch The Incredible Hulk, has had to be delayed to March. I really hope you've enjoyed what is now the season finale, and I can't wait for you to hear the season 2 premiere in March. Thank you for your continued listening, and I hope you stay with me through this break because I have some really fun ideas for season 2. This again is your host, Smash Trivia John, signing off.